Friends, and welcome to another Spider-Man retrospective.
Woo.
I am the man of many masks, Travis Snell.
I am the crane-swinging Kyle Smith.
I'm the battle van, Dylan Moss.
Oh, wow. If you haven't guessed it, we're doing Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes, we're switching it up.
Yeah,
we're switching it up a little bit.
Uh,
Don't worry, we're not done with the animated series. We're
just, please not.
No.
You know, we have Homecoming coming out this year, so we want to dive into the movies a little bit. So.
A little
yeah.
History lesson. So yeah, we'll
sure.
Now, and that gives you time to, while we're doing this, that gives you time to go back and catch up on all the episodes, and then jump back and we'll do animated series. That'll pick up right after Spider-Man Homecoming, but we're doing all the films. I think when we filmed this, we haven't watched the original trilogy yet, so I'm not sure when this will release.
The original trilogy.
The original trilogy, but we did this because, hey, it's on Netflix. It's a nice, easy click for us all. So, Amazing Spider-Man. Dylan, start with you. One, how did you feel about this movie going into it, like your past maybe viewing experience, and then how did you feel, just a little quick overall after, and then we'll get into our classic notes. And
I have seen this movie. I think I saw it when they originally put it on Netflix. That was probably like 3 years ago.
Quite a while,
This movie came out in 2012.
Yeah.
That's 5 years ago. That kind of surprised me.
Oh, yeah,
too.
time flies.
It seemed, nearer in time. But,
yeah.
When I was going into it, and I was like, I think I'm not going to like some parts, just because I feel like over the years we've talked about it, and it's like, it wasn't, that great. But I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it was. I thought that the kind of origin part of it, it took a while, but I thought it was good. I actually enjoyed it, and I think for the most part, I liked the characters. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think there is some problems, like it wasn't perfect, but overall I enjoyed it more than I was expecting. Even though I have seen it, I did forget like most of the details.
That's
so
true.
upon a solid rewatch, I actually enjoyed it more than I was expecting.
Kyle, I believe this is similar to you. You've seen it since you've seen it in theaters, you said, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
So
maybe
like 5 years or 4 years?
4 or 5 years. But just rewatching it again, I kind of changed my mind about the movie, to be honest.
Well, what did you feel about it before?
I think before I really liked it because I was still am on the Emma Stone bandwagon.
Yeah,
she's great.
It was amazing, and I kind of just looked past everything else. But also that we've been reviewing a lot of movies and getting really down to the nitty gritty. So kind of watching it differently now than what I used to watch these movies.
A little more
critical eye, as they say.
So it's kind of changed of what I thought the movie was, and now I understand why you, as in Travis and Liam, shit on me so much for that movie.
No, it was more the next one. It was more than it was. If you go back to what spawned this conversation when we did ranking every comic book movie, you just wanted quite a bit higher than we thought it deserved. You thought it was maybe in that I don't know, that like second tier, and definitely not a second tier comic book movie with like the original Batman Begins and everything. But
No, but otherwise, it wasn't the worst movie. But yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. But it was alright.
Yeah, I have a weird story with this because when I saw it the first time, I saw it opening night, and I did not like it. It was one of my very first comic book movies again, where I was like, I did not like it. I saw it a second time with a friend that hadn't seen it, and I actually liked it a little bit more. And then I had this weird relationship where it all depends on when I watch it. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes I like it a little bit more. Sometimes I like it a little less. It's I think a dead center Spider-Man movie. It's not the worst, and it's not the best. I'd say the best ones are like the first two with Tobey, and then the worst are the last one with Tobey and the last one with Garfield. So I think it's literally dead in the middle of like, it's not bad enough to be awful, but it's not good enough to be great. And I feel pretty much the same way as I do about it now, or as I did back then. I think the problem is, like we'll get into, is that I wonder how, and I've never watched it this way, maybe I should next time, how I'd feel about this movie if this was the first Spider-Man movie. Because I think the biggest con is that first hour is very slow, because it just feels like the Tobey Maguire movie just done a little bit differently. You have like the same beats with the girl, with the bully, with his uncle, they get in a fight with the robber.
I think the thing with that you have to keep in mind too is we have like more context now than you first watched it, and you have to keep in mind there is only a second one and there's no more. So it's like, how much time... Like,
exactly.
Do you
That's a
feel
great
like
point.
you are like invested in it when it's like, there's gonna be one more movie and that's it?
Yeah, well, they plan this to be a
Spider-Man,
trilogy, and then even have spin-off movies, which they already they kind of plant seeds for. So I've never thought about that way. That's a great point. That's why I do like what's gonna happen in Homecoming, which they said is like they're gonna maybe talk about Ben or whatnot, but they're just starting. He's already Spider-Man. We've been through that. Let's move on. I think that was the problem, and I remember that being the problem with the first time I watched it. Just felt it was very slow because it's just like already, like, I'm a comic fan, so I know what happens, but it's just like it felt very similar. They changed little things here and there, but not enough to feel like we had to redo. And it was the other thing of there hadn't been enough time passed, because 2002 or 3, I think the original Spider-Man came out, so maybe just 10 years. And like when you look at Batman Begins, that came out in 2005, and the original Batman came out in 1989, so it's like almost 20 years. And to me that felt like cushion, where this felt like we'd already just kind of got through this. And even the last Spider-Man was in 2008. It's only 4 years or 2007. It's only 5 years in between, like, the last Tobey one. So I think we can start. What do we want to do? Do we want notes? Do we want to go positive, negative? How do you guys want to do this? Because it's very different than our animated ones, because we do kind of notes. So
I think I was just actually listening back to our first Spider-Man retrospective, just to see kind of where we started. And the first kind of main topic was Spider-Man himself. I think. So let's start. Let's start there.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of? Sorry, what's his name?
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield, and as Peter.
Yeah.
And then as Spidey.
I've always said that I have a big affinity for him when it goes back. I saw him in The Social Network, if anyone's seen that, the movie on Facebook, and he's really good in that. And it was probably 6 months later that he got announced he was Spider-Man, and I saw that movie, I'm like, oh, he's going to do great. I think he is, as of right now, because Tom Holland, people can say he's great. I believe so, but I want to see him in his whole movie first. So take him out of this conversation, it's just him and Tobey. I think he is a better Spider-Man, but I think he's an all-right Peter. I don't think he's as cool for school as the animated Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But he kind of is, and sometimes in this movie, he goes back and forth between, they kind of go for that loner thing, kind of go for the loser geek. But then other moments, he almost sweet talks like Gwen Stacy a few times. The way he acts, he's skateboarding around, like
he's not like macho buff, but he's like a cool guy.
And he's fit, like even though it's Spider-Man, like, and it's not even like he's hiding in school. He has at the end shot, he has like a t-shirt, and you just see his guns, and it's like he never really, for me, felt like enough Peter Parker, but not great. I always liked Tobey that sense, because Tobey, I always got the sense that he was an outcast, or was kind of like people didn't like him or thought he was a loser. But this guy, not only is he likable, like he's a good-looking dude, like he has all the things that it's like, I don't believe this guy's really having a tough time, other than his parents have passed away. But like him just being around, like I don't know, like I think he's a all right Peter Parker, but a great Spider-Man. So that's how I'd feel about him. And then I think he does the one-liners pretty good. I think he does I don't know, the choreograph good. Like I think he has the aura of Spider-Man. Peter it kind of goes back and forth with him and Parker, so that's how I feel. What about you, Kyle?
I'll agree with that as well too. I really enjoyed him as Spider-Man. I really like the costume as well. I think he really fit that, and even when he's on the bridge, classic scene, and he's trying to save the kid, even that, I really enjoyed that scene as well. As Peter Parker, I kind of had a hard time with it. I got really annoyed with his voice, to be completely honest.
With his voice?
Yeah.
Why you?
No, just the way he's speaking, and he's like nervous, but he's not nervous, and it just made me feel awkward.
I think it does seem like a little inconsistent at times. Like maybe it's with the acting. That's what I was gonna say too.
Yeah.
I agree with
like
that.
I just had a hard time just watching him as Peter.
He is doing an American accent though, if that changes anything.
No.
I guess not. No,
not really,
no.
but
I see what you kind of mean, though. Yeah.
Right, like I don't know, like even with his interactions, I guess with Emma Stone at that time, she like is doing such a good job, and then you kind of have this. He's kind of playing this awkward but cool. He's playing too many things at once. I feel like it's kind of just stick to one where you're just saying like it's either they're trying to be cool, but he's also not, and it's kind of hard to believe all at once. So. Otherwise, like I enjoyed him as Spider-Man. Like I thought it was really.
You
cool.
almost going Spooderman.
Spooderman. But Peter, he's all right.
Yeah, Dylan.
Yeah, I think you put it really. You stated it really well, Travis. I think that's a good way to describe him. I think, and then as well, Kyle. Like I think he does seem kind of inconsistent at times. Like sometimes I kind of buy the awkwardness and him being the weird outcast kind of guy, but then sometimes. I really don't, even when he's still trying to be in that phase of him before he's like got all this confidence and stuff. But like for example, like the scene on the train when he first kind of gets these reflexes and doing stuff. Like I actually liked that scene.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, see, I don't, because I hate that he's just like he's unmasked, and I hate the thing with the shirt, and like it's a little thing, but his hand's stuck to the pole. But then like he's sliding up and down it. Like it's just like there's all these weird like inconsistencies for me in this scene. And,
I think I liked. I guess his portrayal, like as Peter Parker in that situation, is what I mean. Like
That's fair enough,
I felt like his awkwardness of like not really understand what was going on. Like, I liked that part of him,
Mhm.
but then sometimes, like, the performance was a little, like, weird, and I don't really know how to describe exactly what it is, but something seemed a bit off. I think sometimes the way he speaks, too, it just is... It's kind of confusing, because it seems like sometimes he just has all this confidence, and, he isn't, like, that awkward guy, but then sometimes he does, and it kind of goes back and forth, and it's not, like, related to the story. It's just kind of like, sometimes he will be, and sometimes he won't.
That's why I do feel a bit better in the second one. It feels like when we do the next one, he isn't that. He's kind of picked a Peter and gone with it. And I still don't think it's the best Peter, because he kind of picks the more, like, cool for school Peter version, which is fine, because we've grown to love that in the animated series. Like, if you go back and listen to one, like, that's probably the coolest Peter Parker on screen ever. That Peter Parker in the 90s animated series, like, he's just super buff. He's fine. He's on multiple dates all the time. Like, he's fine. Where, this guy, like, he does go back and forth. And that's, I don't know if it is, like, an acting thing or a writing thing. I don't know if it's like, oh, play it this way and play it this way, or if these were choices. And, like, I don't think it's off enough to, like, his scenes for me, I don't get ruined by any of that. I just, like, okay, this is the choice he's making. I don't think it's the greatest. I do think the scenes when he's with Stone are the strongest. So other taking Spider-Man out of it, I think those are the strongest. I think those two in this and the next one, they are the ones that kind of carry this movie, because, like, obviously they're dating in real life at the time, so that helps. But, like, they have a really good chemistry. And I think if he didn't have those two in this movie and the next one, I think they'd be much worse, because they play a big central role. It's the same way I thought Toby and Kirsten Dunst had good chemistry back in the day. So it's like, I think when you do movies, we've talked about this before, that there's, like, a big love interest and it doesn't really fit. Like, harken back to, I didn't really feel like with Doctor Strange, that was one of my biggest problems, was the love interest. I felt like it just was tacked on, add on, where it does feel those two go together. And I guess I can just piggyback and kind of bring in Emma Stone, talking about her. I think in this whole franchise, when we do this one, the next one, I think she is on par with him, if not a little better, as far as a standout in this series. Like, she makes Gwen Stacy so relatable and so realistic. The scene I always point to is when her and Peter are talking in the hallway, and she has this book, and she's, like, walking, and she goes the wrong way, and she's just kind of, like, doing this motion where she's like being awkward but cute at the same time. Like, she gets the character down great, and I think, like, before, like, La La Land, I think this is when, like, everybody, like, really fell in love with her. And I think she kills it. She's really good in this movie. She's not annoying. She doesn't feel like she's in the way, like, as some love interests do. There's maybe a couple times where it feels, I think, more the ending a little forced that she's there, but that kind of happens in all superhero movies. Like, love interest is, like, if they're not a superhero, they gotta get kidnapped, and it just kind of feels like, okay, we need them here for some reason, right? Yeah. But I think she's on par, if not the best thing about this movie, so, yeah.
I completely agree. It's just love Emma Stone. The way she acts, she really brings out makes the movie a lot better for me. Even just the scenes with her and Dr. Connor, let's say, like, she does a really good job, not just with Andrew Garfield. And I really liked her acting. And I think she's an amazing actress. So even before, like, La La Land and kind of some other bigger movies she's been in before. So it's kind of a big role for her, and she really nailed it. And she made Gwen Stacy very relatable. Yeah. So I can't wait to talk about the second movie with her. So
I haven't seen the second one yet.
You've not seen the second? Oh, that'll be good. That'll be good.
Maybe I started it, but I haven't seen the whole.
Oh, he's gonna have to finish it now, folks. Yeah. Dylan, what did you think about Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy?
I mean, I think Emma Stone is lovely, just all the time, pretty much. So, I mean, I liked her enough, but then I thought she, had a really good performance in this as well. I kind of disagree in that I don't think her and Andrew Garfield's scenes were always that good. I did have, there was one in particular when, I think it's the first time he gets kind of badly damaged and he goes over to her house.
That's a bad scene.
Yeah, like that particular scene, I think it was more him, honestly, than her, but I did not like that scene. I thought he was being, creepy and, kind of weird.
He was. I have that in my notes because I'll delete him now once we go through the notes. I hate that scene because he gets there and, he looks pretty bad, hurt. He looks really injured. Lizard is just, this is the part where he was trying to get pictures of Lizard. Yeah. Lizard finds him and scratches his whole chest. Huge gashes. He was bleeding a lot in the water. Yeah. He gets there. He's on the window. He gets to her place and he's in such pain. And she's, taping him up and, putting all, helping his wounds. And then he just starts, making out with her and just, kind of seeming like he's trying to, have sex with her in this moment. And then he has this idea to go web slinging. And it's a really weird, awkward scene. I'll 100% say on that one,
The whole thing, it even seemed, that comfort level that they had was already sort of rushed. Like when he just like shows up at her window and she's just doing work, she's like, "Oh, come on in."
Oh
like,
yeah.
I don't know, that whole scene to me was kind of off, and I
came
can't.
up 20 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't. I think there was maybe another, like that was the big one that was
Mhm.
outlier to me, but there was maybe a couple others where there was something a little off between them. But I think her in particular, like she was great.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, to bring up that, like, you think about their relationship, literally, they, like, meet each other, and it seems like the next week they're kind of talking, and they maybe talk about going on a date, and then obviously his uncle dies, so there's some time in between.
Yeah.
We don't know how long, but obviously that happens, and then she invites him to dinner,
Mhm.
they kiss on the rooftop, he tells her that she's Spider-Man, and then, yeah, it seems like they've been
Yeah.
together 4 months after, like, the lizard attack, like that.
I also, yeah, I felt like he told her really quick, and
Oh, and I hate
it goes
that
back
he's-
to that context thing of like, yeah, there's only 2 of them, so I am actually kind of glad
Yeah.
that is the case because there's only one more movie, and I would,
Mhm.
I
Plus,
don't
in
want
the
to
Toby
wait
one,
for that to take
they
forever.
waited, too.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, okay, let's
Yeah.
draw this out.
So, but it did, like, it's hard for me to understand his perspective from that, like, just immediately wanting to tell her, you know?
Well, he's so new at it too. Like that's the reason why you think you'd come in. Like, it just kind of felt like, I guess I don't think they did a good job of him playing, but they just kind of wrote it that way. Like he seemed like he had no friends, but it didn't come off in that way. Like he's fighting in there. It just kind of seemed like he was a little obsessed with her at times. Like that was the
Yeah.
way, and even
Well, okay,
Uncle Ben called.
There was a scene, like at the very beginning, I think it's the first scene with Emma Stone, and he's just walking around and he sees her and he just like takes a picture of her. I'm like, that's really fucking weird. Dude.
Yeah, which
That's
Toby
creepy.
does in the MJ one too. Like,
Does he? Okay,
yeah.
You'll see. Yeah, he does. Like one point, he's just taking pictures of her, and it's like you can't do that, Parker. Like
Yeah.
if they do that movie with Tom Holland, like he's gonna get arrested nowadays, you know. But which was funny, of course, classic Spider-Man retro talking about the romance. But yeah, and then I feel like too, and I'll get into some negatives later in my list, but like. Even her dad treats their relationship so like seriously, like they're like mortally in love, like the way like the ending, and it's so like kind of dramatic. And I think like you said in retrospect, because there's 2, I'm glad it's rushed. But if there wasn't a second, this one was just one movie. It feels very rushed. Like a lot of the stuff, I do feel like the lizard stuff is really rushed in this movie too. Like I feel like they take a good route, but then once he's evil lizard, it's just like. Okay, now I want to kill everybody, and
that's
now
my biggest problem with the movie is Lizard.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. But I don't have anything about the cast. I have some notes.
Well, okay, one
Yeah,
last
go
thing
ahead.
about Emma Stone.
Yeah.
I find it kind of funny that like she's naturally redheaded, but they chose like not to do Mary Jane.
I'm pretty sure it's the other way around. I'm not even joking.
Is it?
Yeah, she's actually blonde.
Is she actually?
And Kirsten
Wow.
Dunst
Yeah.
is actually blonde, but they dyed her hair
Really?
red. So
Yeah.
it's
I
a
never
sort-
knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because apparently the story was that she was like when she was younger auditioning, and then I guess someone suggested her to dye her hair red, and then because of Superbad, everyone knew her for red hair in
Yeah,
auditions, so
yes.
she had to keep that. So
Well, the more you know.
yeah, the
Again,
more you know.
apparently, I'm not as big of a fan as I thought it was.
Yeah. So I have one note that I want to talk about. How do you feel about his parents and the whole missing thing? So the movie starts off. You've probably already seen the movie. If you haven't, then I guess we're gonna walk you through this. But so, unlike the Toby ones, parents are just dead. You're just kind of knowing that. In this one, there's a big to do about it. They go, maybe they're dead, but there's a big thing about they're
Storyline.
running out.
Yeah.
They're like something's wrong. How do you guys feel about that? Like kind of beginning, because they did take a new route with his parents. They made it more of a thriller, secretive sort of storyline instead of they're just dead. How did you feel about that?
Go ahead.
Oh,
No?
I'll go. That's fine. I thought it was a different route. I think if they kept with that a little bit more and being a little bit more secretive, I guess it just depended how they wrote that going on with the rest of the movie. I think I would have enjoyed it, but it just seemed kind of off pace for the rest of everything else.
Well, it seemed like that was kind of a setup thing for down the line, but don't ask you before we get into it. Yeah.
It seems like they brought it up, and that was like, obviously the start of the movie, and so I thought there was going to be a bigger connection between him and his parents rather than it just kind of go back to the Uncle Ben and May sort of thing. But then I can't remember who it was. Someone toward the end of the movie says, like, your dad was planning something. Like, I don't know if that's setting up for some, like...
Well, there wasn't, like... It doesn't spoil anything because it didn't happen, but you've seen the second one and it doesn't happen in the second one, so it won't be spoiled for you. So, obviously, their plan was the trilogy, and their plan was to do a Sinister Six movie about the... They were going to do... I don't know why. I have no idea why. They were going to do a movie about the Sinister Six as the main guys, and, like... I don't know what the fuck they were going to fight because they're villains, but that was the plan.
Suicide Squad.
Well, yeah, we saw that turned out. So that was their plan. They were kind of like laying this breadcrumb because in the comics, his parents actually turned out to be S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. So I think they might do that in the Marvel movies. I've actually never liked that. I kind of liked his parents just being passed away and being off on their own. It was one of these things of like, oh, let's make them S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. But I think they're kind of going that route. But what happens in the second one, they did film an alternate ending to the movie where Peter's dad comes back and he's not dead and he talks to Peter about certain things. They chopped it out of the movie. So the ending of Spider-Man 2, his parents are still dead, which I think was the right call. But this is the problem where when this is the Flip 22, when you said they rushed through things because we only got 2 things, that's good. But the problem where this movie and the second one, when you watch it or rewatch it, that age very poorly, are storylines that are like this that are set up for things that are never going to get resolved. Because it doesn't get resolved in the second one. And it's like, spoilers, Uncle Ben's killer doesn't get resolved. So they spend a half an hour of him like tracking down people and they kind of like leave it off. It doesn't get touched in the second one. It doesn't get touched in the second one, and also we didn't get a third one. So that's the thing where I think these ones will age the most poorly. Other than like, you look at like a movie like Green Lantern. It's a bad movie, and they did a few Easter eggs, but it's a bad movie on its own, and that's all it is. Where this, it's like, oh, this is setting up for a down line. That's the only big problems about movies, and we'll see what happens with DC in the future. But let's say if that ended, there'd be all these movies where it's like, oh, they're setting up for stuff, but we just never got to it. So it makes the movie look even worse than it did when you see it for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, like, obviously they were setting up for that, like, parent
for
storyline.
Something, yeah.
And so I think for the sake of this particular movie, it was kind of, obviously it never got fulfilled, but, you know, somewhere near the end, someone was saying his dad was into some secret stuff, so I kind of pegged it as, you know, they're going to talk about this later, or maybe they won't.
Yeah.
But, I didn't really have a problem with it, I guess. Now that I know that there's nothing there, it's kind of like, oh, that sucks, but I'm not, like, really disappointed because I've never really known that side of the Spidey story anyway, so it's like I don't feel like I'm really missing a whole lot. Yeah. And I can be okay with that.
I think they were smart before you go to try to do something different, than opposed to that. Like, I think that's what my problem, not my problem is, but one thing with this movie is why it's not that great, because they do a lot of stuff as like the Toby one, but they just do different spins on it, you know, so like we'll get into that. But I think I commend them for like, okay, make something to do about his parents a big mystery, but the problem is that doesn't pay off ever, so it's like, okay, like this mystery kind of happens, and that's cool.
Nice try.
Like, his parents were into some secret stuff. Cool, we'll never know what that was. But
I was about to say that they say his parents are in some secret of doing some lucrative,
some shady stuff.
Shady, but you know, like he's starting to talk with Dr. Connors, Peter, and it doesn't even seem like it's that shady. He's like, oh, like you're trying to find ways to cure people and like rehabilitate. And it's like, what's so shady about this? And I feel like, you know, if they said, oh, maybe, you know, kind of got more in depth of why it was shady, it would make a little bit more sense of why they had to leave and just go right away, or someone was after them specifically. And it wasn't like with Dr. Osborn. I mean, Dr. Osborn. Wasn't with
Connors or
Oz, because they were saying
Ozzy.
God damn. Because they weren't even
I
saying.
don't actually know what you're talking about right now.
So in the movie, they were saying that Osborn.
Like Oscorp, I think.
Oscorp. Yeah. I think that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, you're trying to say,
yeah, Oscorp.
Yeah.
Is wanting this research to heal Osborn.
Yes, yeah. They did hint at that a couple times when they say, like, he needs the medicine.
He needs the medicine. But it's like, well, what's so, like, bad about this? And I think if they were working on something that was a little bit more deadlier, it would kind of make more sense why they had to rush, because, you know, whoever or a certain type of villain is kind of more after them. And I feel like maybe that would make a little bit more sense, but that's why I had a hard... Like, I enjoyed where they were going with it, but then just keep going with that then. Yeah. Instead of kind of just switching it into something different. So.
Well, we'll revisit that for the next one. Come back, because they do a couple more plot points, and we can talk about now, we see everything that they talk about with the parents, so we can kind of go from there, because they play a role in that. It was an early note just because it happened. How did you guys feel about the score/soundtrack? Because this had a lot of score, but then also a lot of, like, indie songs in there. Yeah. How do you guys feel about the music?
I thought the song choice was, like, it's pretty average. Like, there wasn't anything that was like, oh, I don't like listening to this, but there wasn't anything that, you know, wasn't my favorite tracks or something. But I actually like the soundtrack in general. I feel like
the soundtrack or the score, like the
original soundtrack. Yeah. I don't know. It was like pretty typical superhero, but there was something added to it, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it, but I actually thought it was something that seemed a bit different, and that's, you know, one thing we've talked about in, like, a lot of these Marvel movies, you know, bar Doctor Strange, is that the soundtrack has been, like, really lackluster and kind of just tacked on and pretty stereotypical even, but I thought this one had a nice twinge to it.
Yeah. I think I think the action stuff is kind of generic in this, but I think it's the intimate stuff. Like, the biggest thing of the score I really like is when, once again, if you should have seen this movie, it's so old, but when Captain Stacy dies, like Emma Stone's dad, and it's like, it's just silent, and it's playing like that piano score, and it's like, that goes on for like 3 minutes. I really like that. Like, I put like the scores that I really like were the ones that were like very intimate, and the quieter ones. The action ones are good, like they're what to be expected.
Yeah.
But I really like the intimate ones, and like the music. I actually liked. There's one song they used when he was like in the class, like the original. It's some kind of like indie rock song where he's just like skateboarding throughout the school. I like that, and I did like the Coldplay song that hit in the middle. The only reason I shout that out is because like, the next one they use a couple mainstream songs and they're used very poorly. Like they're they're really bad. So I thought this one did a good enough like of mixing score and like other people's music in there, not being too much. But I actually liked like the actual score.
Yeah, the score was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Even a lot of the bands, or this, I guess the actual songs that were in it were good too. I think I had a difficult time with when he was learning his moves, like his spider senses, and like being able to balance and skateboarding in that warehouse and like swinging from the chains.
Oh, you didn't like that song?
I didn't like that song.
That's a Coldplay song I was singing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
I liked it. Yeah.
I felt like it was a little off for what he
Fair
was
enough,
doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe some more pump. I just felt this is.
I don't think, but
too soft rock for me.
That's the thing with this movie. Like, it's a detour,
product
but
of its time.
well, it is. But I think this movie, another thing that suffers from is it kind of has a lot of. It's trying to be a Spider-Man movie, but like honestly, it kind of has like a Twilight young movie vibe sort of thing with the hair, like his hair, with the way he interacts with the girl, and that's what I think they were going for with that soundtrack. Was very young and hip and like very like kind of alone.
Like it,
but then at times you can tell this is a movie that came out post Dark Knight because there's like some really dark moments that like are really like the one I hate is when he's Spider-Man for the first time and he's puts that guy up against the wall and he runs right at him and he stops and he gets face to face and he's just like breathing and it was like a scary music. It's like Durr! And he's like, "What do you do?" Like he says some line like trying to be all serious. I'm like, this does not fit at all. Or even when Lizard later on, there's that closet scene of Emma Stone. It's like
I
the
hate that soundbite.
Yeah, like I feel like that's the thing with the second movie. It gets really messy and it's really poor written, but they had a better idea. But with this movie, it feels like it is a few people being like, well, make sure you hit like the young audience. You know, make sure you hit the people that like the dark, gritty comic
That's
book
definitely
movies.
It was definitely. I agree. It when I think back to this movie from before I watched it again, I had a memory that it was like a very dark movie and even like dark for like
it's
Spider-Man.
shot dark too. Like just the actual, it's light. Like, we talk about that with like Suicide Squad and Man of Steel. Like not only is the material dark, it's just a dark.
A lot
film.
of the time, but then there is a lot of those like. I think that always just comes up because he's still in high school, at least in this one.
Yeah.
And so, they go for those lighter tones and it's the middle of the day and all this stuff.
That's true.
And I don't know, I didn't think it was, I guess, that jarring, but I definitely remembered it to be darker. And I think most of it is darker.
Oh, and honestly, like, because we talked about, like, 2008, like, that's when The Dark Knight came out, and it's like, this was 5 years after, and a lot of superhero movies were all going for the, like, it has to be darker because that's what's cool right now. Everybody, and that actually, I think that hurts this film. I think them going too dark, because I even think the way, like, Uncle Ben dies is, like, even though it's a death, it should be dark. Like, there's just, like, a different, there's almost, like, a
that
dirtiness
also, like,
to it. Like, it's kind of...
That also seemed, like, Uncle
really
Ben
rushed.
dies, and then you never hear of him. Like, he's over it in, like, a week. He's like, I got these powers, I don't care. And then it, like, I think maybe gets brought up once by Aunt May or something.
Yeah.
But he
never
brings it up.
And the really awkward interaction with Flash, which I like.
Flash was lame. I did not like Flash.
Here's another point that I came into. At the beginning, he's bullying some kid, right? He's putting their face in the food. Yeah. And he's starting to beat up Peter. Now Gwen comes over and says this like, tutoring after class. Yeah. When I saw this movie the first time, and I still feel like I watch it now, they were setting up that they are that girlfriend, bad boyfriend, or like exes. Yeah. But they don't have a single scene together ever again. Like, they seem like they set this thing up, and it felt like an episode of Spider-Man Retrospective. Like, they'll tell us next episode, but that didn't ever come. Like, I still find that really awkward.
They really didn't need Flash to exist in this movie?
No, not at all, because he does nothing. Even at the end, I have it in my note that, like, for no reason, he comes over and hugs. He's like, Parker! And he's like, I'm proud of you. And it's like, why are you proud of him?
On the Spider-Man shirt.
But it's like, why? So you went from bullying him, and I guess the only reason, like, and okay, good enough, like, okay, his uncle died, and he, like, turned to leave. He's like, I'm not going to pick on him anymore. But that's where, and I honestly do feel in the new one, I feel like Marvel is going to spend time. We already see a lot of kids in the trailer, like his friends, where this was not warranted at all for this.
No.
Like, just like this, you could have took him out and just had him be any bully, and it would have done the same thing.
It's true. Like, I think, the only other Flash I know is from the obviously
TV
the
show.
animated series we're on. And I really like, there's like a strange dynamic where Flash, I feel like he sees Spider-Man as like a rival, even though he obviously does not match up in any sense, but he's still like, you're not going to hurt me, I'm going to just man up and try to fight you.
He was most popular, like, he was the thing I want to talk about, right? Because he's like a
and
star
then, the Felicia thing too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I really like that version of Flash because he's not just like some bully, and then in this movie he's like, he's a bully, but then, he's actually kind-hearted. It's like,
and then he's Peter's friend at the end.
Yeah, that was like, that, there's no reason for us to believe that as a viewer.
Peter stood up for himself.
So I want Flash from the animated series. We talk about how annoying he can be sometimes, but he's great.
He's turning the corner where we are. And granted, too, this Flash does not pop in Spider-Man 2. So it's not like, maybe down the line. Yeah. It's just like, he's just gone. Like, they graduate, and it's like, okay, well, we needed Flash for what? So, so this could be a bit for a note that I have. Now I'm going to the Spider-Man, like, retro style. When he goes to Oscorp, they have the worst fucking way to let people in. Because they're like, he's like, do you have your ID? And he's like, you're supposed to pick it up. Like, do you see it here? And he's like, yeah, right here. He picks it up. The girl doesn't even ask, hey, can I check your ID to see if your name is Ricardo? Yeah. So it matches Ricardo.
Yeah, you would think there's like deadly toxin shit going on.
But like, she's just like, if you're Ricardo and you tip it out, that's it. Because then later on we see actual Ricardo getting dragged off. So I just had as a note that like Oscorp has, we've seen already with that and the way he just gets into the spider lab. This is one that's my problem with this film too. There's a lot of like really dumb moments in it. Like, and this was where it did kind of feel like it was for like, young people shouldn't be dumb, but it felt like that. It was like, whatever. Like the way they said in the Toby one is they're going on a school project. The spider just happens to come down and get him. But I hate the actual spider bite scene that he's in there, and then all these spiders just randomly start falling.
And even
no idea
how
why.
it comes about, because he's standing there, he's presumably leaving, and then he bumps into the guy. And then he's like, and then he sees the file, and he's like, I'm gonna follow this guy.
Because it's the same thing that there was a logo that was the same logo in his dad's thing, right?
Yeah,
so he's just
or whatever.
So he's just like, I'll follow this guy. So I want to shout out like as a joke the Oscorp thing, but I actually don't like that whole Oscorp scene. Other than like him meeting Connors, I don't like the way he gets the powers, because he gets bit, and it's not even like with Toby when he got bit. It was like this big thing he got bit, and then when he got home, he was shaking and everything. This was just he gets bit, he pulls a web. And then he goes on the train and he's just kind of fine. Like, I don't, like, hate the train scene, but I don't really like it. But I just, like, I find when he gets bit is very anticlimactic. I think that's my problem. He gets bit and he just carries on. He's not sick, nothing. He's just like, okay, cool, I'm Spider-Man. We see some stuff in the morning next day, but that's the problem again where it feels like the same movie where he's breaking the kitchen sink, the toothpaste, like, he's overly strong, like...
I liked the sticky keys. I thought that was
That was good, when he saved him, like, that was good, yeah. I put that about it.
What did you think of Flash?
I guess we didn't finish on Flash.
Yeah, no Flash.
No, a whole lot to say. I understand that.
There was not really much. There was like 3 scenes with him.
Yeah, 3 or 4 or something like that.
Just him being the bully was kind of a little bit weird. But I guess.
How about the scene with the basketball?
That was just.
I hate that scene too.
It's not even like actually using the basketball. He just.
And he travels because he's bouncing and then he just picks it up and he just runs. He hooks like Flash and then he travels and he just dunks it. And the whole scene is like
they're all like, damn. Yeah. And then he's like, gets suspended because he broke the glass. It's like I feel like
it doesn't make sense because it's like, did he on purpose break the glass? Like it makes no sense. But I did want to ask you two before we moved on. How did you feel about like the origin and the spider bite and everything like that? Like that scene with the laboratory. Like you said, you didn't really like because the file thing. How did you feel about just the whole scene?
I thought it was strange that there was like this gigantic spider farm. Like I don't know. It wasn't great. It was definitely not great. I think they spent so much time building up the other characters and stuff, and it's like if you guys just took out Flash, maybe fixed up some stuff like we don't need this parent storyline, and just put maybe like even a bit more time into making like a meaningful origin for him actually getting the powers, which is at the end of the day the most important part. I think it would have benefited the movie. Yeah. And I mean, the movie was 2 hours and 15 minutes long.
When I was watching it, I was like, man, this is long for some reason. I did feel like it was dragging a bit.
There was definitely a couple things that didn't need to be there, and like, even if you do want to put that much time in a movie, I think there should have been some more with him.
Else.
Like, not, because I think there was enough of him, figuring out how to use the powers and then making the web slinger, but at least, like, that initial spider bite, that's always such a, like, fun, important scene, and it Like, it was much better in the Tobey
And he bites him in the
Spider-Man.
back of the neck. Like, how lame is that? Like, somewhere we can't even get to see, like, the bite, really. Like, make it somewhere else. Like, it's just kind of, like, behind his, like, hood. It's like, okay, cool, you know? And then I like the interactions he has with Emma Stone in those scenes.
Those are good. Those are good.
Yeah, but, like, like, your second-year class and, like, how they're just kind of kidding around and everything like that.
But that's where I feel like that's still where Emma Stone really, like, shined right there. Like, just a small... Her role in there was just making it... She seemed more powerful and, like, in acting wise than he did.
Yeah.
I think it's just because it was something new and like it is a big role for him to do. He's still trying to find his footing and and I know she just really nailed it and he's still kind of going about. But for the spider scene, getting bit, I didn't really understand why these spiders and how they were supposed to save Osborn.
Well, I think
because they didn't. I feel like if they would have explained, like. I guess because he walked into the room and it's like top secret, and then he just Googles like what these spider webs things do at the same time. So just
only Connors kind of hints at it about like Parker found something with the spiders that could like help or something like that, and then the research was gone. But like I think say that for the next one because Osborn's in the next one. They talk about that a little bit, but I think it was just another like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like. You'll find out about this like down the road, but in this film it doesn't really do much. So
it just seemed weird where he just touched the one little rope and then all of a sudden all these spiders came.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't know. It was kind of confusing. I was like, what is going on exactly? Obviously this is a strange room, stranger than most, but this particular action is bizarre.
Wasn't my favorite. I was kind of agree anticlimactic.
How did you guys feel about Uncle Ben's death in this one? It's a little different, but it's very much the same. I guess I'm bringing up because my problem is I think it's really quick to the school thing happens. They get in the fight. He leaves. He goes to the gas station. Which I don't like. Peter Parker robs the gas station. I don't like that he does take money or does take the milk. I don't care that was 2 cents. He does steal that milk, and he's just like I hate the way the guy throws it to him. He's just like. Yeah, and then, like, he walks out, the killer's leaving, Uncle Ben just happens to be walking across the road, Uncle Ben gets shot, Peter's right there, hears a gunshot, he looks, and it's just like, for some reason, even though I know, like, even Toy One, it's the same thing, like, he comes across a crime scene, for some reason, this one feels really rushed, it feels like a lot of things have to happen at the same time for this exact moment to happen, and I don't like it, really, at all, like, it feels just kind of like, man, like, it's just...
It was very confusing. Because here's a couple problems with it. So I don't ever really, like Spider-Man. We talk about Peter Parker in the animated show. How sometimes he can be an asshole. Usually it's not intentional. Yeah. In this, he's just like he was just kind of being an ass.
He's a little shit sometimes.
Yeah, like he's and
he threw the dad like my parents are dead thing in their face and they're like.
How dare you? Like where
did this come from?
He gets angry sometimes really easily.
We just want you to pick up your aunt.
Yeah, that's right. He was in the right too. Like you can't leave her there. Like look, he just got killed.
Smashes the door.
Yeah, like he's completely in the right. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we have a few Spider-Mans now. Tobey, he's a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really remember the details if he ever is kind of an asshole. It's probably sometimes.
Kind of, but not really. Not Peter himself is not really. No, he's just he won't be an asshole. He'll more say stuff like I think accidentally embarrassing someone.
Right. I think that's more the Peter Parker way is that he's trying to help, but then he messes up and maybe he does something bad.
Yeah. Where this just feels like he's
he was just being an asshole, and then like Uncle Ben just like being there and. Like the guy did not need to shoot Uncle Ben. You're just robbing a grocery store, you're robbing a 7-Eleven, and now you're a murderer. Sure, this guy had a gun. Maybe he is a killer. I don't know, but like that was. There's such a big distinction between I robbed the store and got caught, and then I killed this guy.
I think my. Thing to value up, he could have shot him just in the foot and he kind of get away, right? Even then, I believe he could take down this old guy, and be like, okay, knock him out and go, but like, okay, I'll shoot him in the leg and run. But for him to, and he push Uncle Ben down to the ground too? Doesn't he wrestle? He goes to the ground and then he walks over and shoots him.
I'm pretty sure Uncle Ben's on top of him and he shoots.
Right. So it's maybe it's supposed to be a struggle, but even then we don't get that resolved, right? Because of whatnot. But no, I agree with you. Yeah, that is I didn't even think about that. That's a big extreme jump from robbing 7-Eleven to I'm gonna kill Uncle Ben.
What'd you guys think of Uncle Ben, the actor? I haven't seen him in anything, but I liked his performance.
He's a big time actor. He's Academy Award winner. He's Charlie Sheen's dad. He's most known for Apocalypse Now. I really like him. I think he does just a good enough Uncle Ben.
I think he kind of fucks with Peter a little bit, like just makes fun of him, makes
Yeah.
jokes. I like that.
I
really
like when
like
he's
it.
like, yes, you're on your computer.
Yeah.
Like, I think they actually
I'm
do,
his PO officer.
yeah, I think they do
Yeah, I
have
like
a good
that.
back and forth. And I think they made him, and the actor made Uncle Ben likable enough that you do miss Uncle Ben when he's gone, but it's the how the choppiness and the how poorly done the death scene is that kind of makes me not miss him. You know, like there's not impact. And like, even though you see
Well, I
Andrew
think it's-
Garfield crying his heart out,
Like, he forgets about him too.
yeah, like, even though you see him crying his heart out in that scene, it's just kind of, it doesn't stay with you at all, and you already alluded that several times. So I think he was good, but I think he didn't have much lasting impact. You know, he doesn't even drop the great power, great responsibility line. You know, so that doesn't get dropped in this.
Yeah, he
franchise.
can't. Well, he has the other
He
line
says it
about
too.
moral
On
responsibility
the phone, yeah, because like remember he records the message and he says something about like good people do good things or something like that. And you're like, when I saw it the first time, like this is when he's gonna drop it, and then it's just like click. It's like no, okay, no one's ever
Yeah.
dropping that. But what did you think about his death and Uncle Ben himself?
Actually, I'm gonna be against you. I didn't mind the whole Peter getting really mad at him and storming off. Like the way he got mad at him, it's kind of bullshit. But but you know, like I guess
He's angsty.
I'm not a
Teen
big
angst.
fan
It
of
wasn't that bad.
coincidences, but it was all just a coincidence that all happened at once.
Yeah.
But still, I kind of like it because I want Peter to feel a little bit more guilt of like with the whole Uncle Ben and you know being upset because he realized like he did make a mistake and he could have you know changed and did like do better, but he didn't, and that's what really affects kind of the death. The way they dealt with it afterwards, I think, and didn't really you know show that he was hurt through the whole thing a little bit more about it.
Right.
I think that kind of hurt the whole Uncle Ben character itself. Really.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I know it's a coincidence, but I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah.
Even their little struggle type thing that he had because you know you see Uncle Ben trying to do the right thing. He's stopping the guy and
He's trying.
right and
He's trying his little heart out.
yeah he is.
He's a little hard on it.
And he gone, but yeah, no, he had a couple good scenes and just a lot of good jokes, and
Yeah.
I really liked. That's why I missed him. Personally, I missed him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought he had a good line. There's one line that he had. He was talking about when Peter first gets his power. He starts eating all the food, and he's like, "Wow, that's so weird. Like, why are you eating the meatloaf?"
Yeah.
And she's
No one likes that.
I mean, it's like we've been together for 20 years, and you didn't tell me about that. You didn't like my meatloaf. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So I know that Uncle Ben kind of reminded
Yeah.
me of my own grandfather.
Yeah.
So I connected with that a lot better.
Well, I want to piggyback that on this chunk of the film because obviously we'll get to Connors has been introduced, but I think we'll save him for a little bit because I think we have a lot to say on him. This next chunk of the film is the classic. He's finding dozens of fucking guys that look exactly like this robber. First of all, before we get into the actual thing, one of my favorite things is so the setup of the scene is the very first like bad guy. He's looking for people that are wearing black glasses, have a toque on, and have long blonde hair. That's the look. There's a bunch of them in New York apparently that are criminals. There's a lot of them. But the very first one he bumps into has this girl pressed up against a wall, and he has like a gun or a knife up against her, and he's mugging her. And then Peter from out of nowhere is wearing a hood, and he walks up from out of nowhere, walks up, and he's like, "Oh, you like to beat on women?" And then he lets them go, and then he drops a line. You like to beat on old men. And we learn later this is not Uncle Ben's killer.
Yeah.
So I just think from the killer's perspective of him thinking like, why the fuck is this guy asking me if I like to beat on old men? Like I just have that perspective because it's just so like it's totally Peter projecting on this guy. And if it was his killer it would make sense, right? But this is like you like to beat on old men. I just go like what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what's fucking wrong? I laughed the first time I heard that, and I still laugh every fucking time I hear
It was
that.
pretty weird. It was very weird.
Like, it's really weird how he understands. And then, this next chunk is him. The thing I do like about this chunk is you see him playing with his costume, and he has, like, the classic, like, just experiment mess with glasses on, which I liked. Like, he's doing a bunch of stuff, but I find the chunk kind of weird because... One, it's very unrealistic that there's that. I know it's New York. New York's one of the biggest places in the world, but that many criminals to look the exact same it felt really. If this happened in the animated show, I'd give it a pass. In this movie, it's kind of like, well, actually, in an animated show, we actually don't give them a pass, so I wouldn't give them a pass either way. So like, it just felt really kind of cheesy. And I don't like that this doesn't get resolved. It's a huge thing in the movie, him tracking down his killer, doesn't get resolved. And I hate to go back to it, but in the Toby one, there's a huge chunk, but what happens is he gets that killer, and it's ended. He's caught Uncle Ben's killer, and that's the end of it. You know, where this, it's supposed to be, it's not resolved. So my wonder is, I always go back because we'll never know because they don't resolve in the second one. I always wonder where they're gonna resolve this in the third one, or was this gonna be like this, like, oh, your Uncle Ben was killed like on purpose sort of deal, you know? Because even the guy that robs the bank is kind of shady, and I think there's a reason you don't see his eyes. You like they kind of keep him a little shaded here, and then you see a lot of his forearm or whatnot. But so I don't like that. It's never. Once again, taking in context, never resolved, and I don't actually like the chunk of the film. There's some cool action when he's jumping on the walls and beating guys, but it's just kind of lame. Like,
and that's
then,
how he gets his mask as well too. Falls into the
to the
wrestling.
luchador, yeah, and he sees that, which is it's all right. It's like it's cool enough, but that chunk of film wasn't for me. Dylan, what did you think about that?
I think my point here it kind of extends past that particular part, but it seemed like they a lot of time were trying to make this Spider-Man have like more realism to it, like a lot of these things are supposed to be logical.
He's in dark alleyways.
Yeah, and so for that part where it's like, yeah, he's just finding all these dudes that have this blonde hair. It kind of looks like Mysterio, actually, from the animation.
No, a lot of people were wondering if that was going to be Quinn and Beck. Like, that was a big fan speculation. Like, because people still think that Uncle Ben didn't die by accident, right? So that's why it's like, is this like, is everyone working for Oscorp? Was this on purpose? So
it seemed kind of out of place, and I think they kind of messed that consistency up a few times with it trying to seem realistic, but then, you know, like even with the lizard stuff, it seemed like they were trying to go for some realism with some of those,
and then it completely 180.
It's
like
kind of
total comic book.
I did think that was really weird as well, and then like he's like in that. Okay, I just thought of this right now. When that guy breaks into the car.
Never
explained why is Spidey in the car?
No idea.
How does he know that guy's gonna rob that car? Because someone just dropped that car off, didn't they?
Yeah. Something like that,
They just parked their car and started walking away.
I just thought about that right now. That was really weird.
That whole scene's kind of weird because, like I said, in that scene too, that you get him trying to intimidate people. I already talked about that. There's one part of that scene I do like when he pulls out the knife and he's like, "Oh no, my weakness is small knives." Like that to me is like probably. Not kind of so we're like the best Spider-Man scene I've ever seen because it's just perfect. Like the way he does his body motion and the way he acts. I do like the actual like tying this. I like the suit that looks different. I hate that in the next one they just go back in the next one in Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2. It just looks like Tobey's again. They do like the classic like red and blue. They change. Yeah, you'll see they change it. Where this one's like very like sleek and shiny and it has like the longer blue on the sides. Yeah. It looks exactly like the Tobey one. The next one. I think because they just like maybe thought that people. Because this one didn't do the greatest financially, so maybe they thought, because it's a new Spider-Man, maybe they'll really like the... Yeah, exactly. But I actually like the look. I really like when he's swinging, too, because I feel like the lights shine off him, and he just... There's something I like about him being very bright, and... Yeah, I like that scene, except for what you did point out there. I don't think that's... I don't like... It's kind of strange why... He's in this guy's car.
That was a good scene afterwards, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that scene highlights something that was missing. Yeah, the dialogue. Because I think... we talked about this early on in the Spider-Man retrospective of the animated shows. Like maybe he was having too many of these little silly lines, but then the episodes when there's not a lot of that, I'm disappointed because I really like that. And I found in this movie he didn't use a whole lot of like those punchlines. And the ones he did use were very like cookie cutter, stereotype kind of lines, like you don't make me want to hurt you, or when he was fighting the lizard. Like, and I wanted more of that, and I think that particular scene was a good example of what they should have done maybe more.
Because even when the cops show up, he's like, "Oh man, the guys in blue are here," and he's just like, "I just did your job," and everything like that. One thing I was gonna ask you guys with the suit: do you like the red lights on his wrist every time he shoots the web, or did not noticeable?
I guess my picture of Spider-Man is him with having the web shootings inside.
But did you like the lights because every time he would shoot, there would be like a red light that would come on.
Because he made a little machine.
I didn't
just gone in the second one.
I don't think it's really. I didn't really bother me at all, so I don't have any issues.
Oh, I liked it. No, it wasn't. I just liked that they did try to make it look different than Tobey's. That's what I liked, and I did like the lights.
I'll say I'm neutral on it. I didn't like it, didn't dislike it. It was just, I'm okay with it.
I'm still not a fan of anytime the web shooters because you do see it later on when he's fighting Lizard when he's in the water they break and it's cool but it's just like oh man Spider-Man's in trouble, it'd be great if he had web right now. It's like oh no he doesn't, what's he gonna do? So what was I gonna say?
And then you had Lizard like crushes it like in that final battle scene too.
There's one line I just want to throw out we talked about earlier, so I forgot to when they're on the roof, Gwen Stacy and him, and at one point he says, "I was bitten," and she goes, "So was I." Hate that fucking line. It's so cheesy. I know it's meant to be played with like
very cheesy.
Yeah, I think a lot of the notes I have are going about Connors now. So like, if there's any like, I know we talked about other stuff and we haven't talked about
Yeah.
the ending yet.
Well, I'll check my notes.
But I was gonna say, like, this is kind of about the lizard. While they're looking at their notes, I still think this is the best Stan Lee cameo ever.
Oh, that's what I
Yes.
have at the end.
It is, and he's gone on record too saying it's his favorite. I love that he's listening to the microphone. You see everyone or headphones. You see Lizard and Spider-Man fighting.
So good.
Spider-Man saves him.
In the
Like
library,
I think that is the best one, best use put to Stanley. And I really every time that comes, I just like get a good smile. So
What did you think of Peter and Gwen's dad, the captain?
I was gonna talk about that because that's kind of like a little tied to the ending too. But we can talk about that. I like Dennis Leary.
Yeah.
I think they gave him a lot of crap lines in this movie. I think at one point Lizard is like, poor Peter, you have no friends, no whatever, you're so alone. And then from behind you hear a shotgun, and he's like, he's not alone, and he shoots him. You're like, oh man. And why I did this as my introduction, I fucking hate the line so bad every time I hear it. So there's a part where Spider-Man is being surrounded by police. They don't know if he's good, bad, friend or foe yet in this point. It's near the end. And he takes out all the police. His mask has come off. Dennis Leary, Captain Stacy has him gun pointing. He looks and he knows it's Peter. And they know that they have a reconciling. Okay, you're Spider-Man. You gotta go do what you do. Yeah. When he bumps into Gwen later, she's like, I gotta go. He's like, no, you can't. Like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta like help Spider-Man. Like, I know why you want to help Spider-Man. And he's like, I know about your boyfriend. He's a man of many masks. And I just thought in that moment, who the fuck would say something like he's having this like dramatic moment with her. It's like you just be like, yeah, I know, like he's Spider-Man. That's what happened. But just like he literally grabs her by the arm and stops her. And that line, like, it feels like him as a person is being overly dramatic. I hate he's a man of many masks. And really, no, he's not. He's just Peter Parker and he's just Spider-Man. Like, it's not like fucking like
it's too
man
many.
of two masks.
yeah, man, but he's like, it's so over dramatized that I hate that line. I think he's good in it, but I think the character they give him is meh. I don't think he
I think that line would have been more, well, not that line, that whole storyline would have been a bit more effective if Gwen Stacy didn't know who Spider-Man was.
Yeah, and that would have been much better, because the problem is, well, there's two things. One, I do like later on that he does reveal that Spider-Man was not helping because they were watching a guy so he could lead them like drugs or whatever. I did like that because superhero movies don't usually do that. They catch the bad guy and that's what I did. I like that he went, hey, like Spider-Man caught a guy that we were tracking. That didn't help us because that could have led to something bigger. I liked that because I was like, okay, I understand why the police would not like Spider-Man. Yeah. But the thing I don't like is they make this big, and this is jumping to the ending, and I guess like we'll talk about a bit, but the big hoopla of he gets killed. I think he gets killed very quickly. Like he's shooting Lizard, he just gets killed. Lizard literally just throws him to the side and he's gone for 10 minutes, and when Peter comes back, he's dying. Yeah. He does this whole thing about like, you gotta leave Gwen alone, and then Peter goes, okay, I'm gonna leave her alone. And then they did it first, but they pull like a BVS where it's like, spoilers, oh yeah, Superman's dead. But like, he's not really dead. Like, look, and that's what I hate about this, that they kill, like, he really dies for nothing, because I would have liked that if he dies, then Peter goes, hey, I can't be with Gwen, because what happens in the next one, the movie starts with them together, and 5 minutes in, they break up, because he's like, oh, I still think it's too dangerous. So in that matter of fact, it should have just been, he says that, then the whole time they're split up, and maybe in part 2, they're getting back together. But I hate, leave Gwen alone. Okay, I'll leave her alone. He misses her dad's funeral. And then next day, after Aunt May just says, like, oh, you're a nice guy, like, you deserve nice things, he's like, well, I guess I should be with Gwen now. And, like, they're back together. It's just like
a little scene at the school.
Yeah, like, what was the line when it's like, something about, like, oh, don't break promises you can't keep. And then he's like, those are the best ones. And it's like, oh, I hate the whole, it feels, that's the thing, it feels very rushed. That feels like 2 movies worth of just like, here's the dad, there's a problem, he finds out he's Spider-Man, leave Gwen alone, he leaves Gwen alone, they're back together. Boom. And then, like I said, Spider-Man's 2
Yeah, there was no reason to resolve that in this movie.
No,
because it was like, you don't always need that happy ending, you know? No. Like, let them, let him be sad that he can't be with Gwen. Yeah. And revisit in the next one.
And I asked you too, do you guys think, because we've said this, that this movie, and parts is similar to the Toby one, but they changed stuff. In the Toby one, it ends with him and Mary Jane kissing, and he says, no, we can't be together. And that's how it ends, and he walks away. Do you think that they did that just to be different? Just to be like, hey, in the very first Spider-Man, it ends with him saying, like, we can't be together, and he leaves her. In this one, would people have been like, oh, it's too similar? Because I honestly feel like that's the reason, that they were maybe going that round. They're like, oh, but that's how the first Spider-Man ended, so let's make sure they're together, right? Like that's the only reason I could think.
I think there is a vibe of that throughout this whole movie, of like, we are trying to do something different. Yeah. And sometimes it comes across too obviously.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
they want to do the same things because they want to take
It's an origin.
It's an origin story, but at the same time they don't want to be the exact same thing.
That's where you wonder what would happen if this was the first,
Yeah.
or if I guess in the world where that one doesn't exist, or if that first one didn't exist, how would they have finished that storyline? Maybe they would have gone for that route because it would have been better.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I just want to bring. How do you guys feel about his dad and or her dad and that whole thing? Because you brought up.
I think he's another character along with many in this movie that I'm pretty neutral on because I think he has a couple good scenes and there's some parts about him that I like.
He's not bad as acting. He's good.
Yeah, I think acting he did fine. I think some of his lines just leave a little to be desired, and so I'm neutral. Like there wasn't like any parts that really really bothered me, but there was nothing that was like, damn, I'm glad that I'm sad that character died.
Oh yeah,
that's true too.
Well, and you meet him so late throughout the movie too. It's not even like Uncle Ben where it's like he's in a short amount, but that's his uncle, right? And they raise him, so it's like you have that thing where Stacy also so far it's just been he's a dick. And we've known him for like 20 to 30 minutes, So it's like there's no I think if that would happen in the second movie maybe, but I remember seeing that the first time. I was just like, really? Okay, they're killing him, And I just felt like another person to kill for Peter just to make him more. Like it felt like this movie was trying to be sad, and it was like, well, we can make it even more sadder if we kill him, and then he does this big no thing, and I don't think that's warranted. I get that it's Gwen Stacy's dad, but I don't think they have that much of a connection for him to just shout out at the sky. Like it's not even his fault. Stacy showed up there with the gun, like he knew what he's getting himself into. It's not like he could have saved him. So it's just it's really over dramatic. I forgot to mention that part.
For myself, I didn't mind him at all. Like I'm kind of just indifferent. I just really wish that since they did, he said you can't be with her. That he would, and he knows who he is. Yeah. That I already said this before that. Why am I just
Gwen Stacy?
Yeah, Gwen Stacy didn't know him. Didn't know who Spider-Man was. And, that would have been a little bit more precedent because Gwen Stacy would be like, oh, why did Peter stop talking to me?
Yeah, she has no reason where, and even in this movie, she figures it out. She's like, oh, he told you not to see me anymore. Yeah. So it's like, even she knows now. It's like...
She said that immediately, too.
Oh, yeah. They had their convo, and then she says that, and then she leaves off in the rain. Where at least with... if she didn't know, she'd have no clue. Like, why would this guy just stop seeing me, right? Which happens in high school and, dating, right? Many times guys will date some or even girls, and then, they just stop because for some reason, And it would have fit. But, she knows he's Spider-Man. Yeah. And then she figures out that her dad... So at that point, could she really still be that mad at Peter?
Yeah. So... I think... sometimes it's hard to tell the timeline of occurrence. Like, has a week passed? Yeah. Has it just been one day? Is it even later that night?
Yeah.
And so, maybe there is something there. Like, maybe they were together for, 2 months. I don't know. That's probably unrealistic. But, maybe they were together for a month, so it confuses her why he's just, all of a sudden out when he was, pretty into her.
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty into her. Yeah. So, I don't know. Kind of weird.
I don't think I have one other thing that I'll bring up before we get to Connors.
Yeah.
I always, and lots of other people have said this, so it's nothing new, I fucking hate the crane scene. When he gets shot, and, he doesn't know if he can make it to Lizard at the end of the movie, and they're across town, and he's shot, and he looks, and there's nothing there, and then the guy whose son he saved earlier is like, hey, Jimmy down the block, we need him, come on. And they all, he's looking at all the cranes turn, and everything like this. I remember seeing this in the theater, when I was I'm starting not to like this movie a lot, was... all the cranes turn, that's fine. He's swinging everything like that. And then there's one point where he misses one, and then he falls, and you see him go out of shot. It's a building. He goes out of shot, and then he comes back up, and, a crane is, pulling him up. And it's just, there's no fucking way the crane could have, jogged, twisted that much to catch Spider-Man. The crane scene, I remember that took that down for me. I'm never going to be able to give this movie, a super high grade because it just annoys me so much. It's so, it's so cheesy. Just, Spider-Man.
Yeah. I think this movie actually could have benefited if it went for the cheesy vibe more.
The whole way through that.
I think Spidey is kind of a cheesy character. His name is Spider-Man. He wears a red and blue suit. And I think there's a few scenes that you brought up that the cheesiness brought down, and I definitely agree. Mm-hmm. And maybe they should have gone for that. Maybe they should have gone for that cheesy route. Yeah. I definitely agree. That scene was, I don't know, it was cheesy beyond what I was saying earlier of them trying to go for realism. Yeah. And that kind of ventured away from that.
Yeah.
I don't think I hate the fact that that's what kind of gives them the motivation to keep going, is that the people, because this is the first time that people
are acknowledging that.
Acknowledging him, and they're kind of cheering. That's kind of them cheering him on a little bit. So I didn't dislike that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
fair
the
enough.
motivation is there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The cranes was very cheesy. It's like, oh wow, this is also very convenient that all these cranes line up.
It's the same thing again though of like I hate to, but that's why one of my problems with the movie is the parallels. The first one, there's that part in the first one where Goblin, he has Mary Jane. At one point, there's all these New Yorkers on the Brooklyn Bridge, and they start throwing stuff at Green Goblin and be like, oh, like you mess with Spider-Man, you mess with New York, you know? And this felt like, okay, now we need a scene to show where people are a part of New York, but how can we do it differently? And that's like, we've already talked about a bunch. I always feel like, oh, we gotta do this scene because it's origin, but how do we do it differently? You know, and like they do it differently, but I just don't like. It's just that the cranes line, and I hate if that I could almost deal, but I hate the crane that catches them because it just seems implausible. Like it seems dangerous for a crane to be like going out of their way to make sure they could catch Spider-Man because like
it can't do that.
No, it can't, but it does in this movie. Like it, like he like full like the crane's nowhere, and then it comes up and it's Spider-Man's on. And you're like, oh man, they're great. You know what do you?
I don't know. Just one last thing. I don't think that scene bothered me as much as it did you.
Much.
But I don't really have a good reason why it didn't bother me that much. I think that's a lot of things in this movie where it's like, that probably normally would bother me, but I didn't feel too negatively about some things.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason why I picked it as my name for the beginning.
The crane? Because you love it?
No, I just didn't like it. I thought... It's
no, I just didn't like it.
I hate why I didn't. I'm gonna jump on with Travis as well too. Is that just all the cranes just magically line up and then he just magically goes?
And like, where were they too? How long would it took to get down?
How many buildings are getting built right now on that same street? Let's think about
true,
it.
There's a lot of stuff that needed.
A lot of coincidence happening.
Like every block, there's a crane.
Yeah.
And even all the streets are blocked and people can't drive around. Like
how they
pretty
getting there?
You know, good thing they're all at work right now.
I thought Spider-Man just uses the sides of the buildings and swings from like each building like that way.
Yeah, he does, but like for apparently because his legs hurt, he needs like an extra boost. He doesn't.
That's where the thing for me, the reason he kept going is because of the motivation that the people were behind him.
Yeah.
For me, it was that more so than the cranes itself being actually helpful. Like they're probably a little more optimal than the buildings. But I took it more as a motivation thing. Oh, the people are behind me. I got to do this.
You know, see, I think what they should have done is kind of. Well,
just had him swing there. He didn't need to get shot. You know why? Because him getting shot has nothing to do with the
also,
movie.
yeah, he
doesn't
shot
grab his leg.
The captain's like, hold fire, and then he shoots anyway. I'm like, wait, what?
Stop ever. And like that shot in the leg is just, even though Dylan, you said it's not the worst thing, that's another thing you could take out for time. Even though you said like it is the rallying of people, you could easily the next day just have a newspaper headline just be like, people of New York saves New York, people in New York like infatuated with like mass vigilante, right? Like
that's what I was about to say. Like Luke Cage does it really well, where all the people are kind of behind him. They're wearing like
they're wearing the hoodies and whatnot, which is a 13-hour series. So let's give it some.
I know.
Yeah, but I love a 13-hour Netflix Spider-Man.
But they could have done something like that, where like all the people are, you know, like wearing the mask.
They already do that with Flash wearing the shirt, though. Remember?
That was after all.
But that's what I.
I
don't
like
think
to
it
get the people behind him.
I guess, but like I don't know. It's just because the leg shot thing doesn't play into part of it. And the other thing that brings me back to this, we're not talking about Lizard yet, but at one point near the end when Lizard turns back to Connors and he like catches Spider-Man from falling and he's like pulling him up. I don't understand that because Spider-Man can stick to walls and they're on a building, so I didn't really feel like Spider-Man was in danger at all. But they make a super dramatic scene because his arm starts to go away. Yeah. He's like, oh, and they catch him with the other one. It's like, Spider-Man, you could just save Connors the fucking struggle and just be like, plop. Like, that's all you can do. Like,
you don't even have to be strong. You literally just connect.
So like, I think the ending kind of like has some like plot devices that are like, oh, his powers don't work, so he can do some dramatic moments. And I feel like with the crane and that way with Connors. So
one other little, this is just one of those things that we would bring up watching the animated show. There's a scene, and I think it will kind of tie into the Connors stuff we're talking about next. He's going through the sewers looking for Connor's base.
Oh yes.
And then he's on the phone with Gwen. I'm like, I don't think the phone would work down here. Like, do you guys think a phone would work?
He wasn't on the phone with Glenn. He was playing an app game.
No. This is like
like the second to
when he's like creeping around. He's talking on the phone. He's like, I want to go find his base.
Well, I don't think
the phone would work down
here. I'm pretty sure the phone would work.
Okay. Would it? Counter you though.
Those sewers are massive, dude. Those are not like Kelowna, thing.
Counter you though. Remember Osborn, the guy that works at Oscorp that had the file, like the shady guy? Yeah. At one point, he's like, I'm going to go try out this, like, untested vial on the veterinarians, right?
Veterans.
Yeah.
The veterinarian. He's going to a veterinarian school. I'm not going to test you guys on the animals, but on you.
On you, I need you. Yeah, the vets. So, and then Connor's, his arm is growing back, so he thinks it works, right?
Yeah.
And then he phones the girl, and she's like, oh, he's going to the vet hospital or whatnot. Yeah. He's like, oh, you can't go there, you need to tell him to stop. And then she responds, I can't. I lose signal with him when he crosses the bridge. So if the phone is set up when he goes across a bridge, they lose service.
I'm trying to help you, Amazing Spider-Man.
But that's where it doesn't. They set up that apparently New York has really shitty service. So if it won't work on the fucking bridge, it sure as hell can't work in the sewers. And Connor shouldn't have fucking Wi-Fi either, which I can't wait to get Connor's little setup down there because I fucking hate it. It makes absolutely no sense.
This reminds me of the podcast Serial where they talk about a murder for like a bunch of episodes, and there's an episode dedicated to like talking about the phone towers and what would work. It just reminds me of that.
No, I'm gonna agree with you. I've been to New York and in the subways, your phone doesn't work in the subways. So
there you go.
So why would they have it down in the sewer?
Yeah. I was just trying to be the devil's advocate. Yeah.
Are we ready to jump into Connors? I feel like this is a big time point. I'm going to start with positive. I feel like I can never say his name. Rise Ifans. I think that's how you say it. I'm going to call him Rise. I feel like he does a good enough Connors. I think they make him a little two-dimensional. You don't get the animated him with his family or him really concerned. I think he does play the wanting to be a full person again well and like playing a person of disability who feels like he's missing out on life. I feel like what they gave him, he does a good enough job with. I feel like Connors doesn't have much dimension. I feel like Lizard has done poorly in many ways. One, just to start off the basics, I think his look is awful. I've never liked this look.
Definitely.
And they don't really choose if it's like a... With Connors and Lizard most of the time, he's Connors and then he's Lizard, and the Lizard is so, like, it is a Dr. Jekyll Hyde thing, but the Lizard's so, like, out there where they never in this movie explain, like, the Lizard's insane, and maybe the Lizard does want to turn people into lizards, but in this movie, they never really explain that. It kind of makes it sometimes feel like Connors is wanting this, and then other times it feels like it's like a mind-messing thing, and then, hang on, before you continue, my last thing is, he's not scary, like, at all, and that's what I think really enforces when they do that thing of Gwen in the closet. I feel like Lizard, I always saw when I heard about, one day we get on the screen, animated series, he's not the scariest, but they can put a little horror in there. I feel like a fucking man lizard should be scary. He comes off very CGI, cartoonish, and that was like all my things, and we're going to talk about more, but yeah, I think Lizard could have been great, and I think they kind of bungle him, and they make, I think other than the film repeating a lot of the past, like the Toby stuff, I think the next biggest con for me is Lizard and the whole thing. So whichever one of you guys want to start, I'll go from there.
So yeah, again, I didn't mind Dr. Connors too bad at the beginning. You know, like he is struggling quite a bit, and he wants to do something well for the community, and Peter comes in and helps him. And I kind of like their little interaction where Dr. Connors...
I liked it. It did feel a little rushed, though. That like Peter cared about him so much so quickly, you know? He's like, it's
because
I know, family ties. I know.
So that's where that came pretty quick. The lizard portion of it wasn't really the biggest fan of it all. I just didn't understand how he can just go from a person to being a lizard to back to a person. Like, I feel like if you had that transformation, like, you would just stay as lizard. You wouldn't... go back and you're like, oh, I need to go to research mode, but then all of a sudden, oh, I need to be lizard.
Well, I think he was... Well, actually, yeah, that doesn't make sense because the thing when he shoots it up to the sky, that was make everyone a lizard, right? And the only way you could stop was with that antidote.
Yeah.
It didn't make much sense that, okay, so if he's perfected something that could turn everyone into a lizard full-time, why didn't he use that on himself before he went into the big fight? Like, I think they don't do a good job of explaining his motivations at all. Like, is he wanting this? Is he kind of, like, hijacked by Lizard? Like, I didn't get a clear sense, even again watching it for the fifth time.
He very much seemed to me like he was pretty much always evil. Like, it didn't take long for that turning point, and I think for me it started out Dr. Connors, you know, he was fine, and I was waiting for that moment for him to, like, for them to really sell him as a character and for me to feel invested, and it didn't really happen. Like, he was just okay going along. You know, I don't think it was actor's fault. I think it was more so that they didn't really give him much complexity in terms of, you know, just the lines they gave him. But, you know, he was going along, and I was like, okay, I'm neutral on him, and then, you know, the bad stuff started coming, and so honestly I didn't really like him overall, just because I felt they didn't, like, sell me off on him, that he was like a, you know, a character that I felt like invested in, and
Well, can I,
I
ask...
think-
Well, go ahead. No, yeah.
Well, what's the question?
Well, can I ask, because you said you always felt like he was a bad guy. I didn't get that sense the first few scenes, like when Peter goes to his house. I still got the sense that he was like a good guy in his, like in a way, like maybe that was
I
some
always
shady
felt like
stuff.
I felt like he was fairly neutral. You know, a lot of his, you know, going to the character himself, you know, his research seemed oriented around just trying to help himself out. Like he didn't
and
seem...
others, I think he would use it towards other people who had disabilities too, right? I would imagine. Because he did talk about
sure, like,
stuff could
that's what I'm
heal
saying.
cancer.
Like down the road, I feel like they could have got into that, but I don't think they ever did.
No.
To me, he'd always felt like he was just trying to, you know, cure himself.
Mhm.
And then after like the first time of him transforming himself into a lizard, he had maybe his mind was fried and he was already kind of evil, but it seemed like he just liked that power, and so that's why I felt like he wasn't that good of a guy, that he couldn't be swayed to the dark side that easily.
He did want to spread it though, remember? Because wasn't that his whole motivation making everyone a lizard? That he wanted everyone to have like these full regenerative, like this was the way to live. So I think he backwards. I don't think they wrote well, but I think they did intend for him to care about other people. I don't think they stressed on, but I think that was his intention to you know.
And there definitely was some sort of tension between him and Oscorp as well too.
And the guy, I can't remember his name.
I think just my problem with that is, you know, one thing about the animated show Connors is that when he is in the lizard form, he's complete. Like
He's just a
he
monster.
can't even speak.
Yeah.
Like he's just completely different. And then whenever he's back to human, like he still is. He's that good guy, and it's like those are two different personalities in one. And I think it makes sense. But in this movie, because he can talk as well, it always seems like that character is one and the same. One of them has like super strength and is a lizard, and one of them is not, but they're the same personality.
See, it reminded me when he was kind of going back and forth between being a person and being lizard of the first Spider-Man with or the second one with Goblin.
No, first that's Goblin.
Goblin, the first one, where Goblin that voice in his head's telling him to do something.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I don't know what I should do," and it's like, where is this lizard just talking to? Like,
well,
that's
yeah,
what I didn't
that
really
does
understand.
happen at one point. Remember the lizard like kind of talks to him?
Talks him like into, we
and
need to be doing this.
I never felt like those were separate characters. Though.
Yeah.
I always felt like they were the same, and I think it's because they made the lizard like such a boring villain to me, because
really did,
even like we even talked about it in the first episode of like the animated series. He wasn't that interesting of a villain, but to me he's at least had a little more dynamic to him. Like he was, you know, sneaky and he was smart, but in this movie he was just a musclehead.
Well, and
he was just like a giant, scary, like mini Godzilla guy. You know?
Yeah. Well, and to me, you take out Flash scenes, take out other scenes. I think the biggest thing is they should have gave him a family. That's I think one of the best parts about.
That was what I was going to bring up next.
Yeah,
in the original, or I shouldn't say the original, but in the animated series, the first thing he wants to do is turn his wife into a lizard. That's his goal. But in this movie, it goes grand scheme, and he wants to put a cloud out. You know, it's that thing we talked about in the comic book movies where you know the X-Men movie that they did recently, where it's just like if you go to that extreme, how much farther can you really go? The stakes never really seem to get any bigger than that.
Yeah,
and I think that was the problem here. Like he just immediately wanted to turn everyone into a lizard.
Yeah,
he always just seemed like a bad guy without, and then like when he turned into that, even the glimmers of the bad guy, he never went back. And
but then at the end,
struggle,
he is good again, right? Because he saves Peter. There's a scene I'm not sure because I didn't tell you to watch. There is an end credit scene.
I did see that.
Oh, you did, and he's like, the guy's like, oh, you tell the boy about his parents, and then he's like, or this father, like, no, you need to leave him alone. So like, again, at the end, they try to make him seem like this good guy, and that's the thing where you talk about Goblin. With him, it was always, he was a shitty character, but what happens when he got infected, it was like, that was the devil on his shoulder, where he was a bad guy, but then the Goblin come in and make him do those things, and amplify it. Where this was kind of like, oh, he's kind of a nice guy, trying to help you out, but it's like, oh, maybe he's a bad guy, but then like it didn't, that middle ground, because then later on when him and Connors, or Peter and Connors have that scene, the first time he's lizard and he's like has that growth on his neck, I hate that scene. It's a really weird scene because one, they're kind of like dick measuring. Yeah, they're one of dick measuring because for some reason keep talking about like Peter kind of makes it sound like spiders are better, and then Connor's like talking about how lizards are better. It's like, this is so fucking lame. But like, and then the fucking big rat kind of like the CGI rat kind of ruins the scene too, and it's like eating the other rat, and it's like big and bulky.
Yeah,
it's like, what did Peter do about that? Did he kill it or like what? Like
they just left it.
They just left it. Like like I know, but it was just like that wasn't needed at all.
I think what would have been better for this movie is, well, one quick thing is I think it would have been cool if they had the lizard like in the science coat more often, because I do like that look.
They
and
did
I
a
wish,
cameo at the end. Remember when he at the very
they
he's
did.
hiding a bomb.
I know. I wish he was like that for more.
It looks so much better.
And then the other thing, I think this movie would have benefited if it went for a different kind of storyline, in that, you know, speed up the origin story stuff and maybe make the transformation of Connors like happen for like a half an hour, and then have a different bad guy. Have like a villain, and then I want to see like Connors turn good again and help Spider-Man and kind of team up. Like, yeah, maybe that would have been too much for one movie. I think they would have had to change.
I think
it
would have been
for
too much for an origin story, and that's why I think
Yeah.
Lizard is not a good origin story villain. I think he's somebody you should have done. You could, because that's from I
You
don't
should
think
have just had Spider Slayers, really.
I don't know. No,
They should have made a Mysterio.
Yeah,
That
please
would've been
Disney.
sick.
Yeah, like it almost should have been something like that. Like that's where I think even with Connor's family, you could have brought that in. But in this movie, you couldn't fit in Connor's family anywhere, because now it'd be a 2.5, 45-minute movie. So I do agree with you, but not for the first one. But I just think Lizard in general is not a good first villain, because then you could introduce Connors and build that relationship. Because this was the thing too, that Connors is in the original 3 Spider-Man, and that was Sam Raimi's plan to eventually turn him into Lizard, because then he's in 1, he's in 2, he's in 3.
Yeah.
You've known him, and then you can take one film to get to know him a lot and turn him into a lizard. And that to me was always a smart thing. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it, but that was smart. Like, oh, he's just around. He's just Connors, and one day he's gonna be Lizard. That'll be awesome. But this is like you meet Connors right away. He's the Lizard, and you don't get a good sense of who Connors is. And yeah, I think the look of him, I think it looks really bad. Like it looks like I always hate to say this, but it kind of looks like if Michael Bay directed like a Spider-Man. Like it has that kind of very heightened.
There's other moments of the CGI, like when he's saving that boy from the car and it lights on fire. I thought that was pretty poor as well.
Yeah.
CGI
Coming
wise.
through.
Yeah, and there's just certain scenes about Connors I don't like. I don't like when he finds out it's Peter. He waits like a little bit until he's at school, and then he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to school and get Peter, which was like, okay, I kind of get it, but the editing of it was just really weirdly placed right down the middle. I hate that he has a lab in the sewers, because there's like all this electronic stuff. It's working, it's fine. And my biggest pet peeve is later on Peter goes down the sewer, he finds all this stuff. All he does is hit the fucking space bar, and then there's all these video diaries of Lizard, and then there's this thing
Just
where
woken up from sleep mode.
he has a PowerPoint where there's all these Lizard, like it's him talking, and then it switches to like it shows a beam, and then it shows the cloud, and shows all the people turning to lizards. It's like, why the fuck would he even make that? Like, who is he talking to? Why is he need to make a PowerPoint? Like, if he's just gonna be
He's
like
documenting the time, so it's all documented properly.
That's a scientist thing to
It
do.
is. scientific
I
thing
guess,
to
but
do.
it's like
Doesn't matter if you're evil or mad or
you
not.
have to
do
do
it.
it.
it just isn't
you gotta
like he was in the
document
right sense of mind to be doing that. Because other times he was just like fucked up, and I just hate that. I do love at one point when the thing shoots up the sky with the antidote. Lizard is just like, he has his face. He's just like, like I don't know why. Like I think Lizard is really lame. Like he's one of the lamest villains like I think that's been on screen. I don't think he's in the bottom, but he's in the second bottom. Like he's because they give him a little background, but yeah, I don't think it was a good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about Lizard really, but he was disappointing.
Yeah.
I don't really have much either.
Yeah. No, I just felt like it was one of those things when I watched the first time, I thought the movie was like, alright, and I was like, oh, well, Lizard was fine, but you know what, the next one will be good, and then that's another story. But
do you guys like the look of Dr. Connors?
Yeah, well, like he's blonde.
Yeah. No, I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
do I like the look of Rise Iphans? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fine. He has no arms, so that's a check. He's wearing a lab coat.
Yeah,
His glasses.
I never really thought about it. He looks fine.
Yeah. I think he was
How
good
about you,
enough.
Kyle? You have-
Yeah, do you have a problem with him?
I thought he kind of reminded me of the if he spoke German, or kind of reminded me from the what's it called, Spider-Man Retrospective, of the other doctor that taught Peter in the school.
Dr. Octopus?
Yeah, Dr. Oct. If you kind of look like more like Dr. Oct to me. No, did you get that
No,
vibe?
I don't-
Weird.
I don't see it.
All right.
There's two
Heck,
sides.
maybe he's Mysterio. He had the blonde.
Yeah.
Yeah, why didn't Peter ever... Oh, I gotta check if he has a star on his...
Do you guys have any notes? Because if not, before our rating, I do have some trivia of some stuff about people that were
Bring on the trivia.
Yeah, but if you have any notes, we'll talk about that. Not like guessing trivia, like stuff that about the film. Some.
I think a couple times when Peter came back to Aunt May's house.
Oh yeah, we didn't really talk about Ant-Man. We should talk about her.
Oh,
quickly.
I was at... Yeah, I just thought of that.
Yeah, he's like all beaten up. After he just went out and beat all these people, but you don't see him take any punches. It's just him giving all the punches.
Well, and
It's
the
like,
other
why is he so bruised up?
and the other thing is, I've always gotten the sense that like for some reason I feel like Aunt May might feel like he goes to this like gay club where people are into beating each other.
Yeah.
Because she's
I
like.
never had that.
She's like, you come
never
back
had that.
every night and you're just covered in bruises because if she doesn't think he's Spider-Man, what else does she think?
I think
always
this
got that
movie
in
would have
mind.
benefited if you want to have it so he tells two people that he's Spider-Man. Make one of them Aunt May instead of Gwen or instead of Gwen's dad. That's what I think would have been better.
Mhm.
I think Aunt May was like she didn't have it. They didn't give her anything. Like she had like I feel like she had 7 or 8 lines. I like Sally Field, but I feel like Aunt May was pretty much absent from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No, I
continue because I want to find a quote that she said about Spider-Man. It was pretty good.
Okay, I completely agree as well too. Like I feel like that her like the whole Uncle Ben thing could have been, I guess, tied in a little bit more of her being upset. And
I thought they had good chemistry, like Ben and May.
Oh no, they had
scenes.
they had great chemistry, but I mean like when he died, and so like they kind of forgot about Aunt May, and then kind of what was happening with Peter.
They forgot about Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben about the whole situation right afterwards. So I feel like that could have been a little bit more, and you know, like Aunt May's trying to get to. I guess Aunt May was trying to get through Peter, but Peter was just kind of just being a dick and my parents and just walks off. So
you got the line.
So while a guest on the Howard Stern's show in 2016, Sally Field, who played Aunt May, was asked if she liked The Amazing Spider-Man, her answer was, "Not especially. It's not my kind of movie, but my friend Laura Zinsky was a producer, and we knew it would be her last film, and she was my first producing partner, and she was a spectacular human." When Stern asked how much effort she put into preparing for Aunt May's role, she said, "Not a great deal. It's really hard to find a three-dimensional character in it. You work it as much as you can, but you can't put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag." So yeah, this is kind of a paycheck for her, clearly. It was just kind of like, well, I'm Aunt May, and I think she was good enough for. I think I was really disappointed because I remember when they announced it, I was like, man, that's a great Aunt May. She'll do great things. And I feel like in the original trilogy, Aunt May does have some great scenes and some ties to Peter. In this one, she's forgone. In the second one, she's kind of forgone. She has a really bad storyline in the second one, which I can't wait. Please tune in for the next one because I have a huge rant.
I'm excited to watch that because I imagine it'll be pretty bad.
Oh, it's pretty bad.
I just have one question before we hop. One question for you guys. Do you like the fact that he's not a photographer? Well, he takes photos, but doesn't work for whatever the place is called in this one?
He kind of does in the second one, so I'll give it to them. Okay. But it's kind of like, it feels like the Aunt May thing where they just kind of like put it off to the side and like, oh, we're not gonna get into that. Like, it's a spoiler, but like, there's no J. Jonah in number 2. Oh, he has an email from Jonah just saying like, where are my pictures? That's all. So like,
Justice League.
yeah, emails.
All right, well, we'll talk about that one in a second.
So, what was this? Before filming, Rhys Ifans, the guy that played Lizard, researched his role by meeting several handicapped people who had missing limbs. He also spent 1 month performing his daily activities using one left hand, including tying his hand in a knot. Or using a tie to tie his hand in a knot. The script had a small snippet written where Connors ties a tie, but it was not filmed due to time consuming. So there was a scene where he was going to tie with one hand, so... You know what? He put some effort into this, and I just want to shout that out because it's not the greatest role, but you know what? He took it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, like we just said, I don't think he was the reason that character was bad.
Yeah.
I don't have really anything to say about the actor because I actually don't know what else I've seen him in. But if you think he's good, then I trust you, Trim.
He is good. He's Harry Potter. He's Luna Lovegood's dad. If you remember who Luna Lovegood is, he's like the hippie with he tells him about the Deathly Hallows.
He's in one that wonky house with the
He's in one of my favorite, Little Nicky. He plays like the evil devil brother. If you ever seen Little Nicky, the one who eventually takes over from Blonde. He's just popped in a bunch of different stuff over the years. Speaking of Lizard, though, and this was a big thing back in the day because I remember seeing casting. Michael Fassbender was originally considered for the role of Dr. Kirk Connors. He passed in order to play Magneto.
Good for him.
Smart choice. He made, whoever his agent is, up until Assassin's Creed, made the right choice for him. And then his Inglourious Basterds co-star Christoph Waltz was also later attached to the project, but nothing obviously happened. So
he could be a nice bad guy.
Yeah, he definitely can. Let's see. To prepare for his role as Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield studied the movements of spiders and tried to incorporate them as much as he could. Parker is a boy spider in terms of how he moves and not just in the suit. That's how he would describe Peter, a boy spider. So,
what I think also I kind of forgot is that he just all of a sudden had all these fighting abilities and like he knew how.
Well, that's his spider sense, right? So it's like when I go to punch, he'll block and punch you back. That's the Spidey sense, And they hinted at it a little in the train. You see like a blue flash, but they never do it again as Spidey sense.
Yeah, they don't really have like a scene or like a specific world he goes into when he has that sense.
Where like the toy one's in slow motion when it happens, right? Which is one of my favorite things is like in that scene I was telling you about when it was revealed that Peter's dad's alive that they cut. He's standing somewhere and Peter's dad sneaks up behind him and he's like, Peter, and it's like, well, where's your fucking spider sense? This guy randomly sneaks behind him, but I digress. This is the first live-action Spider-Man motion picture where the main villain ends up in prison, rather dead or at large. So first time they end up in prison.
I I'm glad they didn't kill them all.
And I will say that, obviously this went nowhere, but I will say that for more DC and Marvel, I don't care who you are, stop killing villains. I think it's the dumbest thing. You can kill off every once in a while, but there's a reason why everyone fucking loves Loki and talks about Loki. It's because he's been around for 3 movies.
Because he's alive.
Yeah, you get a chance to develop him, you know? So I like that, even though I guarantee you he was going to be in the Sinister Six, but no Sinister Six for...
Yikes.
For the Lizard. And this is what we talked about earlier. The filmmakers cited that Steve Ditko's work, comic writer, was an inspiration. Brian Michael Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man, which is a big favorite run of mine, was. And then another one they cited was Batman Begins, which you can see, I think, a lot in this movie. Mm-hmm. They're definitely going for that vibe. 2 last ones I have. This is about Spider-Man 4 and why it didn't happen. So originally they were
Spider-Man 4?
Yeah, with Tobey. They're playing another one.
Oh, okay.
And then here's the story why
I was like, we didn't even get the trilogy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so if anybody... So this is the one with Tobey. Originally conceived as Spider-Man 4, a direct sequel to the original film trilogy, Sony had actually begun pre-production and began opting to make the film as instead of a reboot. So at this point, they talk about reboot. They're like, oh, we're going to continue with Tobey.
Right.
Sony renegotiated contracts with directors Sam Raimi, Tobey, and Kirsten, all getting $30 million each for 3 films. So good on you. Too bad it didn't happen, but good on you. And you know what? I was talking about this earlier. I was really happy to say that Kirsten Dunst got paid the same as Tobey. That doesn't happen a lot, and she's not even the main character, but she got paid $10 million for each film.
Good for you.
Wow. That's good.
Fair.
Good for you, Sony.
Even though it didn't happen.
This was with the intention of starting a new trilogy in the series. Scripts were commissioned from writers. I won't name them all. There's like 6 of them. They went through a lot. Each writing earning up towards $1 million for their service. So they got paid $1 million to write the script, and this movie never happened.
Wow.
So this is why people, when they talk about with people that don't know movies that are in pre-production, that's always costing you money. Anytime someone writes a script, that's money out of someone's pocket. So... I don't know how DC's doing right now, but there's a lot of rewrites going on. The story would have introduced Vulture as the new villain. Raimi initially approached Ben Kingsley, who went on to play an Iron Man villain, for the role before casting John Malkovich. Malkovich was actually slated to play the Goblin back in the day, but had to withdraw due to scheduling conflicts. In addition to Vulture, the film would also introduce the villainous Felicia Hardy, with Anne Hathaway set to play the character.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I like that aspect of it.
I don't know. That's another discussion. Yeah, but then they changed it to they were doing an original character tied to the Vulture called the Vulturess.
Oh no!
Yeah. So when you think Felicia Hardy's bad, like that was the time when they changed it to her to play Vulturess. I remember because these were rumors going on. I was like, please no.
You know what I'm
that
picturing
sounds
right
so
now?
bad.
I'm picturing a scene where Spidey and Vulture are facing off, and she flies in. He's like, "Oh, what's your name, Vulturess?" And she's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, and then you know, I guarantee you it doesn't say this, but you guarantee it was probably his daughter, and it would have been this like, Peter has this will, they won't, they with her, would she help out her dad, would she help out Peter? Yeah. She dropped out to go do Dark Knight Rises, Dylan's favorite Batman movie of all time. And then after that was starting to fall through, Raimi also expressed interest in having Dylan Baker return as Dr. Kirk Connors to turn into the villain, or turn into the Lizard, like I was telling you about. Though executive producer Avi Arad vetoed this idea. So the producer of the film said, no, we're not doing Lizard. So he was into the 3 films, and then nope. And then this led to, with development costs skyrocketing, that went over $100 million. Raimi and cast unhappy with the repeated versions of the script. Nothing. Tensions started to rise between Raimi, Maguire, and the studio. Sony opted in January 2010 to cancel the film and reboot the film instead. Raimi, for his part, has said it was the best decision as the director had been unhappy with Spider-Man 3, citing studio interference, and he hated the storyline concurred for the proposed 4th film. Wow. So that's your rundown. If you don't know... I didn't make that all up. That's off IMDb. But like, if you don't know,
good stuff.
There you go.
Don't know any of that.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why you didn't get a 4th one. This is the last one I'm gonna hit you with.
I'm glad.
After the Vulture thing, I would like the. Well, we're getting Vulture. It's funny.
Yes.
All the way back around that.
No Vultures, please.
Yeah, which actually was kind of fun. Yeah, no Vultures. But I wish
it would be funny if that was a joke in the movie. They should.
They should. There you go, Marvel. Should, yeah. Here's my last thing. We did this with the Batman Retrospective a long time ago. Some alternate casting choices for Spider-Man. So I want to lay some of these people on you and see what you think about this. Taylor Lautner from the Twilight series. He played the werewolf guy.
Yeah.
I'll give a. You can just do Spider-Man Retrospective. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I saw the first Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
Thumbs down.
I always thought the only reason that guy was became popular is because he's very attractive and the women like that.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of him.
Yeah.
Glad it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big thumbs down to me. Josh Hutcherson from Game of Hunger Games.
I'm gonna thumbs up.
I'll still thumbs down.
I'm like a 30-degree up.
Yeah,
like,
I'd almost do that. I'd do the mid. Yeah, I don't
like
think
more of a middle. I'm
Yeah.
not opposed to it. Like, show me what you got, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I feel like he could play a really good, like, he already plays kind of the awkward and kind of insecure role pretty
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that would have.
You know, I'm okay.
he even did a screen test for it too. It's online. So he was really close to getting it.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
Because they filmed like that scene of him on the train, a
Oh,
version of it with him, so or
Oh.
something like that. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think 10 years earlier,
Yeah.
he's the perfect Spider-Man. If you look at old, even the way he acts now, but old Joseph Gordon-Levitt, if you watch Third Rock from the Sun, I think he is Peter Parker. I remember when they were talking about this and his name come up, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I still, even though he's older, I still want it because I just thought he looks the part, he could act the part, so it was a big thumbs up for me, but obviously I think the age would have been a little...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
too
the
late.
age, and then, like, because that was in 2012.
12, yeah. So they would have cast like 2010.
Is this post-Inception? When did
No,
Inception
this
come
would
out?
have been this. He probably wouldn't have been Inception if he was in this because they would have been
Okay,
cast
that's
around.
not a timeline I want to
Yeah.
For that reason alone, though.
Yeah, they were cast around in
Yeah.
2010. So
Right.
no, Inception came out in 2010. So he would have came
I
out just
think-
out of Inception.
I think at that point he's too cool.
he's
Yeah.
too cool
Cool for it.
Yeah,
I think so as well too. If maybe
I
if he
love
was younger,
J.J.
or instead of them being in high school, maybe it was like college or university.
yeah. They could have just skipped and be like, "I'm Spider-Man in
Yeah.
college."
Yeah.
Spider-Man retrospective.
yeah. Logan Lerman from the Percy Jackson series.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, I'm gonna do a big thumbs down. He was a choice this year or with Holland, and I'm
Oh.
not a big fan of
No?
him. No, he's nothing against him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Just he was a lot of people's choice. I was always like, no, please. Robert Pattinson from Twilight as well. They had a big Twilight.
no.
That's why you can see to me the Twilight in this movie, like with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Coldplay song, because
Yeah.
it was coming off the success of Twilight. So
Yeah.
I would say for me, he's higher than Taylor Lautner,
Sure,
but still thumbs down. I cannot picture him as Peter Parker. No.
No.
He's like a Flash Thompson, sort of, I feel.
Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame.
Ooh, no.
No.
Because
No.
you can't put
No, you
Harry
can't.
Potter is
No.
not
It's
Peter
kind
Parker.
of sorry,
You can
Radcliffe.
like
yeah,
Peter
you
Parker
get one or the other.
is probably the most recognizable comic book character. I'd say that's fair. Like
I'd
fair
say second.
behind.
Batman. I think Batman for sure. That's not biased. I think so now. I think
I would say from my life experience,
fair enough.
because I didn't really, honestly, I never really knew anything about Batman until like a couple of years ago.
I would say
So I would
just
say
'cause-
he's
just
always been the number one for me. And
just
you can't
because
put
the
Harry
Dark
Potter
Knight
and
took
Peter
him.
Parker.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
You can't have them. That's too much. That's
Yeah.
taking up too much roles. So yeah, I think he would have done all right. Actually, I don't know if how he would have been. Even taking the fame out. Let's say he's not Harry Potter. Think about him in those movies.
I
as
can't
an
think
actor.
of him not being Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's a. But like from stuff I've seen of him, I think he'd be all right. But I don't think he has. He doesn't have the effect. He doesn't have what it takes to be Peter for some reason. I don't know why.
He's-
just a big no
the-
for me.
Like we all love Daniel Radcliffe, but at the end of the day, like that's gonna be a thing for the rest of his life. Is he's Harry Potter, you know? And I don't know. I don't think I see it as Peter Parker.
I'll hit you with this one. Michael Cera. Fuck no. What were you thinking, people? I like Michael Cera a lot, but come on, that's a big thumbs down. That would have been the really
Michael
cheesy
Cera.
Spider-Man you were
Michael
talking about.
Cera.
Wait a
He
minute.
has the awkward component.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you need to be more dynamic as Spider-Man. I don't
Yeah.
know if he could do that.
Like there is a point where you need to be nerdy and kind of a loser, but I thought he was. It's not that he would pull that off, and he'd pull off the like
No.
you wouldn't suspect it's him.
Yeah.
But it's the Spider-Man part. Like it's just I'm picturing his.
He
voice
has like
behind
one
the mask.
component out of like maybe 5 that you need
Yeah.
to be a good Peter Parker / Spider-Man.
Yeah, so a thumbs down for
Thumbs
me.
down.
Yeah.
You guys haven't seen him acting much, but the newly cast young Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich was talked about. So
I don't think
I don't think you
know
guys
who
see him in
that is.
anything. I think he would have been all right, but I'm happy he's Han Solo. Hopefully, he'll do a good job there. Zac Efron.
What?
I think that's a big no because we talk about the awkward.
He could play like an animated, like
See,
from
He
the
could
animated
play
show.
Eddie Brock, like
Yeah,
Pump's
that's true.
good-looking guy,
Yeah.
like or even Flash, but like he's way too charismatic and good-looking for Peter. Like you think
Yeah.
about him in High School Musical and the movies, and now like you
Yeah.
think about him as Peter Parker.
I
That's
like
not
Zac Efron, but I don't think he's
Me
right
too.
for Peter Parker.
Mhm. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Kick-Ass.
Mm,
I think it's all right, but he
huh.
already played Kick-Ass, so it's kind of like it's close, you know.
yeah. No.
That doesn't jump out at me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd immediately veto it. You know, I'd say
Yes.
he's higher up on the list than most of these other guys, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people.
Drake Bell from Drake and Josh back in the day. He did the voice for Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say no because he's like a little piece of shit. So
I know as well.
I leave him in my childhood.
And the last one, sadly, the late great Alton Yelchin, if you guys know who that is, he was in Star Trek as
Right, yes.
Shemik or whatever. He just passed away.
I unfortunately can't remember him too much from that movie because I only saw it once.
Yeah, I didn't think you guys would, but actually he was probably for me like the best one next to Garfield. He was actually really good. He was good at playing awkward and whatnot. You'd recognize him the second you saw him. You're gonna look him up.
Yeah.
Well, while he's looking him up, Dylan, a score out of 10.
Oh yikes!
Because it's not the show. We can do out of 10. What are you giving Amazing Spider-Man, the reboot?
Yes, I think this movie's strange because there's a lot of parts in here that I thought going into it. I honestly thought I was gonna have a negative perspective of it, and I came out with a positive. For me, number off the top of my head, I'm thinking around 6.5. That's what I'm thinking because there was some good stuff. I like some origin stuff. I like Emma Stone. I thought, for the most part, why can't I remember Peter Parker? What's the character?
Andrew Garfield.
I don't know why I can never remember that name. I thought he had more good scenes than he did bad scenes. If that makes sense. For me, the biggest downside is Lizard, and obviously, at the end of the day, that's kind of the big thing of the movie. Uncle Ben was good, so there's good stuff. There's bad stuff. Overall, nothing was phenomenal, and nothing was really, really that bad. Even Lizard, he wasn't the worst villain I've ever seen. I don't think. He's pretty low.
Oh no, I do think so.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like. We should do this one day with comic book villains. We should. I don't think he's Enchantress level. I think he's the one right above that. So if it's like an A, B, E, D, C, F, I think he's a D villain. He's not the F. He's close, but they do give him a little scenes with Peter, and the actor is good, right? Where, sorry, no offense to Cara Delevingne, but Enchantress, she doesn't get to act good at all. So it's that's where I think it's bad writing and bad acting. He at least is like we said, there's nothing wrong with him. There's other people in the F category that I would throw out there, but go to YouTube if you want to know who that is. But
I think I'll drop it at 6.5.
Yeah.
Better than I thought it was gonna be, but not great. Not great.
Cosmin.
So I really liked the movie when I first watched it. I quite enjoyed it. I think that's what I said.
Yeah, because you were, I don't know, a big fan, but you were a fan of it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I'm now rewatching it kind of what I said earlier today. It wasn't as good as I thought it was, so it kind of went down quite a bit. But I think 6.5 is a very fair mark that you're saying. So I'm also going to say 6.5 as well.
Shout outs to 6.5.
There were some good moments in it, and I just feel like they could have. I know it's an origins. They were redoing the origin story, and they just could have played it a little bit differently. And now, after watching a lot of the Spider-Man, doing our Spider-Man retrospective, but the old Spider-Man series, that they could have used a lot of those ideas and implement that into something a little bit more different.
That's what I want Marvel to do. I just want them to remake the animated series and just put it on the screen and just.
So I don't know. I like the movie. Definitely some problems and the crane swinging.
6.5 cranes out of 10.
So I'll give you 6.5 of a swooping crane.
Exactly.
Otherwise it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Positives, performances are great. Both Andrew Garfield, even though some stuff's a little uneven, I think overall he does a good job as Spider-Man, and he's a good Peter. He's a fair Peter. I say that. Emma Stone is great. The other actors are doing a good job. He plays a great Spider-Man. The times that it is Spider-Man, I think the action's good. I like the score. Negatives, the villain's bad. Lots of it's kind of a retread. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. I'm giving it a solid 5. I'm breaking the chain because the problem is I think they do good stuff well. I'd like to see a version of this movie where we didn't spend the first hour redoing the origin, because that's the thing. They redo the origin, and then if the villain was good, this would be higher because the villain's not the greatest. It's lower, but I don't think it's enough for a fail. I think that's why I gave it a 5, because that's a pass. It's 50%. I don't think it's enough for a fail. I think there's enough good stuff that I still enjoy myself watching it, but at the end I was thinking this was long, and I've seen this movie over 10 times, and I was watching it today, and I was like, man, this thing just feels like it keeps going on, and that thing. So not a fail, and I think it's exactly what I said at the beginning. I think it's dead in the middle of Spider-Man movies. Not the worst, not the best. So yeah, we're going to be back. I'm not sure. I honestly have no idea when these are releasing because of the movie schedule, and these are a little far in advance. But we're doing Amazing Spider-Man 2. That should be interesting. That's a movie that notoriously killed the Sony Spider-Man franchise and got us
Homecoming. So
And I haven't seen it yet. Like,
Mhm.
like this one I had seen a few years ago, so at least
Yeah.
there was some semblance of something I'd seen, but this is brand new for me.
you have something about not seeing the last of a Spider-Man series. You didn't see Spider-Man 3. You didn't
It's
see
true.
Amazing Spider-Man 2. There's something like, oh, this is when it gets bad. I'm going to jump off.
Just,
I
just
have
knew
a
beforehand.
Spidey sense for it.
Oh,
Oh,
damn. Well, on that note, we're going to get out of here.
Mhm.
Make sure you go to geekverspodcast.com. You can find us on our social media, whether
Yes.
that's Facebook or Twitter. You can find all our podcasts, like the spin-off ones, Spider-Man Retrospective. Go back and listen to the rest of them. They're
Yes.
lots of fun.
Mhm.
Dynamic Duo, Rant, Rave, Repeat, Netflix and Fail. Check out the main show. It's great. Check out GeekVerse Gauntlet. Yeah, check out GeekVerse Gauntlet. I don't know what the match is this week, but check that out. That's lots of fun. And and stay tuned, because when you listen to this, we're definitely doing a Spider-Man Homecoming review. So if you're a Spider-Man review, if you're a Spider-Man fan, if you
Oh,
like
yeah.
this,
Probably
us
night,
three,
probably night one.
No, you actually won't be here when the actual movie drops. You'll be on your trip in July.
Oh.
So 2/3 of the Spider-Man retrospective will be here, and the rest of the GeekVerse podcast. So
Yes.
thank you very much. We'll catch you
on the web.